Hi, today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about how to launch your teens into adulthood. My name is Mandy Frost. I am an academic coach to teenagers and young adults and a life coach to parents. And what I'd like to do today is talk about life skills, but put them into sort of two groups because we have the practical, hands on, more hard skills, and then we have the soft skills. And so I'm not going to go into too much detail with the practical ideas because what I'm going to do is give you a resource, which I'll put into the chat when I'm finished, on more about what these skills look like, giving you ideas of what things you could tick off by the time you finished educating your kids and they're ready for adulthood, they finished their high school. So these are the skills, for example, household management, knowing how to cook and clean, manage the laundry, perhaps managing a small garden, doing small home maintenance or repairs. So I'm not going to mention all of the things, but that'll be on my resource for you to read. The next category would be financial management, helping them with writing checks, knowing the difference between debit cards and credit cards. And so one thing we always taught our young adults, they're all young adults now, we have 3 sons and we homeschooled, and we used to tell them that credit cards are only used for your credit score, building a credit score, and for getting rewards. And so we always said to them, don't use money that you don't have. And so just giving them ideas of what that looks like, also knowing how to file their taxes, that sort of thing. The next category would be car maintenance. And this is something my husband was really good at with teaching our boys, how to maintain their cars, knowing what to look for when buying a car. That was also a really big thing for them. And it was really cool the other day because our youngest son, who's 20 now, he's at college, and he called my husband a couple of weeks back and said, "Hey, Dad, I need your help. I'm helping this young guy, this friend of mine, buy a car." And, we opened the bonnet and we took a look and, explain, this is the problem and that's the problem. And we looked at this. What do you think? And it was really cool to kind of see how those skills were coming into play as he was helping somebody else buy a car and what to look for. And so that was kind of cool. The other thing to help them with is, emergency medical. Do they know basic first aid? Are they able to make their own doctor's appointments or dentist appointments? And the other thing I wanted to mention is self-care, which is obviously really important right now, is, sleep patterns, nutrition, exercise, prayer, reflection. And the big thing there that I want to just focus on here is being present, knowing how to be present. That is also self-care. And, just being aware of having our cell phones, grabbing our lunch and having our cell phones, watching a YouTube video, or constantly having these distractions. And, I'm particularly aware of this. There's always something we want to learn, with regards, like for myself running a business, I always want to learn about, how to market and how to watch these business gurus teaching me and training me. And so I'm constantly, bombarded by these things. And so just taking a break when you have lunch and you have meals, being a role model to show them how to be present in the world and what that looks like is also a life skill. Then there's 3 other things I wanted to mention, and that is, career and the future. They need to know how to research careers and how to look for colleges, how to, their applications, that sort of thing. But also giving them experiences, looking for jobs, looking for internships, job shadowing. All of those things are really important. And because when they get experiences, they know what they don't want to do, not just ideas of what possibilities there are out there. And then giving them also entrepreneurial skills, and I'm finding that this is really crucial, is giving them, helping them to know how to market themselves, marketing, advertising. 2 of our sons have their own online businesses, and they learn to build their own website. So having a 1-page website, creating an e-portfolio for a resume is also really important, because nowadays, everything is so digital, and, employers one day, and for college applications, they're going to be wanting to see who your teenagers are and take a couple of seconds to see who they are, what they look like. And having a digital online resume and portfolio really does help them to get to the top of the pile. If you want to see it like that. The other thing that I want to mention that is actually the top of my list, that's the most important when it comes to life skills, is apologetics. And they need to know how to defend their Christian faith and understand why they believe what they believe. Also, how to study scripture. We taught our boys inductive Bible studies. We used the precepts from Kay Arthur, precept studies, and just knowing how to interpret scripture, how to read scripture, how to learn it for themselves is also a life skill that I think is really important. And so our teenagers want more autonomy, and we need to know that autonomy and responsibility need to grow together. And so, for example, if they want to use the car, they need to be responsible in the small things. Can they do their chores? Driving the car is not a right, it's a privilege. They need to earn these things, and that's really important. And making the nest uncomfortable so that they stretch themselves, getting out of their comfort zone so that they get a taste of real life responsibilities. And then I want to talk briefly about the soft skills. The soft skills are those skills that are not easily quantifiable. It's more of the interpersonal skills, like the people skills, the intrapersonal skills, which is self-awareness. How do they take in information? How do they study? The executive function skills. How do they organize themselves? How do they cope with challenges? And how do they cope with stress and anxiety? Also managing their emotions. And you find now, particularly now over this time, you have a lot of the A students even are struggling because they don't know how to handle anxiety. They don't know how to handle their emotions. And the stress of COVID is really making a big impact on mental health. And so emotional maturity, emotional intelligence is something that we need to train our kids in doing better. So looking at some of these skills, problem solving, critical thinking, decision making, all of these things are important for us to help our teenagers become more of their own problem solvers. We're very good as parents, we're very good at giving our kids advice. We're very good at telling them what to do, but we want to help them to tell themselves what to do. We want to be less of a manager parent and more of a coach parent so that we can ask them curious questions, get them thinking about what they need to be doing and how they can find the solutions for themselves. And so a couple of examples for these questions you can ask, like being a coach parent, is you could ask them, what's your plan? What's your plan for completing your schoolwork this week? Or what's your plan for finishing your chores? And if they don't know what their plan is, now is the time for them to think about articulating that plan. What are their intentions and motivations? Another good question to ask them is, what do you think? How would you solve this problem? So you're constantly getting them to think of their own solutions, because what you're doing here is you're helping them to take more ownership. You're helping them to be more self-directed. As they solve their own problems, they think of their own ideas. There's greater buy-in and there's more motivation because they're likely going to follow through when it's their own ideas. And also they are becoming more confident because they realize their capabilities in solving and finding out what they're able to do and what their capabilities are. So emotional intelligence, as I've already said, I just want to also mention that it's important that we self-regulate ourselves. If we want to show them emotional regulation, we need to also know how to control our own emotions. And so when we self-regulate, we are in co-regulating with them. Because if you think about it, when we're stressed, our kids are stressed. When we're anxious, they're anxious. So if we start yelling at them, they start yelling at us. And so we want to create the environment of a co-regulated, calm, peaceful environment. And then values and ethics. Think about, we obviously want our kids to value what we value. We're teaching them our family values. You could have a conversation with them to find out, do they know what your family values are? And you could say to them, do you think that we live according to our values? Because sometimes they perceive things differently to us, and sometimes we don't always practice what we preach. And if we could just get curious to see if we are actually living according to our values, what are they seeing in our lives, and where can we change? And so a good question to ask is, how do you see me? Because we also want to be better, we want to grow, we want to examine ourselves, we want to judge our own hearts so that we can be better parents as well, and we can grow into the parent, the woman, the person that God created us to be. Another soft skill is helping them with resilience and grit. Resilience is the ability to bounce back after setbacks, and grit is pushing through hard things for an extended time. And so, building resilience, we need to give them the freedom to fail. I know this is really hard. It's hard watching them fail. It's hard, it hurts us to see them hurting. It's hard when we see them uncomfortable, but this really helps them to build more resilience. And because what happens is the brain is rewiring for more resilience. And if you think about it, what better time now in their lives for them to fail now in a supportive, non-judgmental, safe environment where the stakes are low? Because later on, the stakes are going to be a lot higher and the pain is going to be a lot worse later on. And so letting go of our own fears to control our own fears of letting go and seeing them fail, it really does benefit our kids and ourselves in the long term. And it helps them to avoid those failures that can be, at a much higher stake later on. And then executive function skills, I think I kind of mentioned this a bit, and this is time management, prioritizing, organizing, when to do what, task initiation, all of that kind of thing. Resourcefulness, it's important that our kids are resourceful, and we help them to be resourceful by getting them involved in the family, by planning meals, by planning the family camping trips or the meal times, or also even going shopping with us, and letting them sort of buy the shopping seat, the budgeting, that sort of thing. And so that just helps them to, with having more experiences, helps them to be more resourceful, to be able to research what solutions for themselves, being involved in home maintenance, all of that kind of thing helps them with their resourcefulness. It is really hard to let them fail, Amber, I agree. And if I had to redo it all over again, my husband and I were having this conversation the other day, we would let them fail more, because it really does help them to be more, to self-advocate for themselves and letting them know we're not judging them. So giving them the permission and say to them, I know that, I want to train you to be an adult and I want you to learn these skills, and you are going to mess up, and that's okay. We all mess up. We're just going to work a plan. How do we move forward? And just know that they have the freedom to fail with a space where there's no judgment. And that makes a huge difference in their lives. And then just helping them to grow into leadership, teenagers who are more influencers and less influenced by the crowd, to, serve others, not always serve themselves, to make more of an impact, in the community around them, and to be accountable as well. That's really good for them to be accountable, for their own actions and bear their own consequences. And so these are some of the things, that I've mentioned, with life skills, is we need to support our teens in building these skills. They need these skills to survive without us. And so we're really training them to not need us. And I know this is hard, but this helps them to be more to self-advocate for themselves. This helps them to be more confident. This helps them to be more self-directed and self-motivated as we launch them into adulthood as confident young adults. And so, as I said, there is a resource that I will put into the chat box after this, and you can download it. It has all these ideas that I've mentioned in a little bit more detail. I also have a Go program, which is a 15-week curriculum, which I help teenagers with executive function skills, but that class is not open right now. That only opens again in the fall. This is a wonderful time where I actually also support parents in how they can help their kids with executive function skills as well. I give them a lot of support of what that looks like. And I also have support parent membership community where we talk about all of these things. We talk about how hard it is to fail, how to start implementing certain strategies to help us parents. And so being more of coach parents as opposed to manager parents, letting go of control, which is really hard because that's our default. Our default is advising them. We have wonderful wisdom, wonderful advice, telling them what to do, managing them. And so it's hard to let that go. And so one of the big things that I love doing is training parents in how to be a parent with a coach mindset and letting go of those default managerial skills that we're so good at. And that's really hard to let go. And so, as I said, what I would have done differently is I would have let my kids fail more. What I also would have done is I would have had more discussions with them and being less directive. And so now that I've learned these skills for myself, I'm able to implement this even now with my young adults. And so it's never too late to learn these skills. And so anyway, I hope that the resource will be helpful. Thank you for being here. Patsy says, I teach my daughters that failures aren't actually failures. If you learn something from them, they should consider them lessons. Absolutely. And I love the quote by John Maxwell. He's a coach, and he says, fail often, fail early, but always fail forward. So it's about failing forward. It's about learning through those failures. It's about resilience, getting back up, seeing where did I go wrong? How can I do better? And it's really important as parents that we don't judge them for it, and that we kind of show some grace and forgiveness for those things. And so that's a great point. Thanks for sharing, Patsy. And so anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. I will be posting those resources, and let me know if there's any other questions you would like to know when you've read the resource and you've had a look. Let me know if you have any more questions after that. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great rest of your evening. Bye-bye.